Hello everybody, welcome to Drawing with Dendorrity. I'm Dendorrity, and today in this video we're going to be talking about shading. Two key terms I'm showing in the drawing here are luminance and illuminance. Luminance is the measure of light that's hitting an object, and it's real important to shading to know, number one, where your light source is coming from, number two, how much of that is going to be reflected and seen by the eye, and where it's going to be reflected and seen by the eye. There are a lot more terms that we could use and a lot more research that can be done on this subject. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to go ahead and start drawing and explain things as I go along. I'm going to go in quickly and render out the subject, who happens to be Apocalypse from the new X-Men movie. And you can see all my rendering, and once we get to shading, I will start explaining what I'm doing. When I want to start shading, I make sure to define where my light source is coming from. And then what I want to do is go in and kind of get a base value. A lot of times it's good to go in and get kind of a mid-tone and paint your whole image like that. And then I go in with the dark tones first. Now when you do your shading, you have to imagine the figure in a form that is almost, you have to realize that some planar surfaces are going to be pointing up towards the light, and those surfaces are going to capture more of the light than those that are facing away from it. And then you've got your shadows coming in on the dark side, and then you have also cast shadows that are being cast from things like the nose, from the head, from some of his outfit. And those are some areas where you'll get some darkness, but those are also areas where light can reflect. And or you can also have light coming in from different areas too that will reflect and capture some of the attention away from the dark spaces. And so metal, especially when you're dealing with metal, you want to make sure that you get the glints that have a tendency to go off, that have a tendency to go along the edges. In most areas, I start with the dark values and then I slowly add the light values to it. A lot of this is just it's preference, but then in addition, it helps a lot that as you're completing, you can suddenly see everything come to life when those light values are added to the piece. And so you'll see here, I'm going in and detailing everything. When you work on detail, especially with metal, you want to go in first with the darks, and then at the very end you can add in the lights. Don't get too caught up in adding lights right off, because your picture literally will not be finished until you get to the end and add in those light values. Those light values help to bring everything out and bring more of a realistic look to everything, because that's where the light's going to hit those places. And when you're dealing with metal, like I said, along the edges are where a lot of times you'll get lights. Even in some dark areas, you'll get the occasional glint, because that little edge, that little metal edge is catching that light and reflecting it. And so another thing that I have a tendency to do is sometimes I'll go in and add a little too much light as I'm adding in my lighter values. It never hurts to go back into a scene and add more dark if you notice that your dark is completely going away. One of the advantages of drawing digitally is you can always go back in and add more dark to it. And so with some other mediums it might be a little bit harder, but in most you can still go back in and bring back some of your darker values if they start to get a little lost. You need to have that contrast and that light and that darkness to really catch the eye. And the places that catch the most attention are normally those that have the most difference in the value ranges. So for example, the eyes there, you'll see how bright they are compared to the shadows that are around them. One other note before I finish up here, starting with a background color or something in the background can really help to make sure you get your values correct. Well, that's it for today.